Hello YouTube, we're back again. I don't know if you can see the little fella, but there he is. Excuse me while I just quickly try and wipe my camera lens off. Oh, that's better. There's a little fella. I just put some food in there not long ago, which is a lot of food, but the pleco will certainly clean up whatever the little dovii doesn't. He looks like he's chomping on some now. Tiny little dude. Anyway, I named him Tiny, as I said in my last video. And there's Mr. Pleco, Tiny dovii, hopefully a male. And check that out in the background. That's my latest creation. So I know this is going to be a long video, so I'll try not to waste too much time, but basically that big plastic bottle there is a homemade box filter that I made. It's really just a flower container. Stickers taken off, cleaned out thoroughly, put some holes in it, put an air tube in there with a bubbler, and have a sock in there with some stuff called macropore in it, which is excellent at removing ammonia and nitrite and nitrates and whatnot. So I prefer this style of filter to the modern sponge filters that I see everywhere. A lot of aquarium stores nowadays sell those black sponge filters, which I think, yeah, they're okay, but I find that the old school type of corner box filter, to me, with the fine wool and just the design of them, they just do a better job. Not here to argue, I'm sure people might disagree with me, but from my experience, I think that the old school type are much more efficient and do a much better job at removing small amounts of debris from the water than the sponge filters. Also, I find when I lift the sponge filter out to clean it, a lot of the gunk comes out, a lot of the dust, the dirt and that comes out and just goes back in the tank. But with this type, it stays in the wool, and you clean it, you squeeze it out, you put it all back together, and away you go. It's great. Anyway, there's a little dude. See if he's not shy, this little guy. He's pretty good. Not like the Festo I had. The Festo was super shy. Little dovii, he's not shy. So I mentioned in my last video I was going to upgrade a filter as well. I had a power filter in here. There's Mr. Pleco, Sailfin Pleco in funny colours right now because the light's on. I mentioned last video that I was going to upgrade a filter, and I have in fact done that. So just for now, we're going to go a canister filter later on, but I like the big aqua clear type 110 hang-on filters. You know, the waterfall style. I think they're cool, and I like them. I think they do a good job, and they don't take up space in the tank like a lot of internal filters. So here he is. Got myself one of these guys. I think they're great. Got a bag of biomedia in there, ceramic beads, just that, and filter media. I think they're an excellent filter. I've always liked them. Just a preference of mine. I like the effect of the waterfall too. Creates lots of aeration. Looks nice, sounds nice, does a good job. I just think they're great. Good value for money, and they last for years. I've had those things for well over 10 years in the past. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today wasn't just this. I just wanted to talk to people out there about keeping your dovii. Like for me, for example, this guy's probably 3 centimeters long. I mean, you know, he's very tiny yet. And I've had several over the years, some up to the 20-inch mark. And one thing I have learnt is the bigger the tank for dovii, the better. And especially, length's important, definitely, but width is super important too. A lot of tanks you get are, you know, from aquarium shops are 2 foot wide, and 2 foot wide's good. But to really max out a dovii, and I'm going to name drop here and refer to someone like Guapote Mel. His tank, 600 gallon acrylic tank he has is 4 feet wide, and I'm not sure, I'd say probably 3 to 4 feet deep, and I can't remember, I think it might be 8 or 10 feet long, 600 gallons. Those sort of dimensions are why his fish got so big, and the amount of water changes that he did every week and the quality of his food. I think you know, it all makes such a huge difference, and I've definitely learnt that. He's doing poop right now because he's been eating. I've definitely learnt that it's important to have a big tank, good filtration, good food, regular water changes, and all that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to show you guys some pictures of some dovii that I found on the internet. Big wild dovii. When I say wild, I mean out of the lakes over in Central America, like Lake Apanis, I believe it's pronounced, and places like that. I don't know whereabouts exactly. I know that they come from, you know, dovii come from Nicaragua and Costa Rica, Central American areas in the Great Lakes, and I think even there might be a river or two somewhere there they come from as well, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, so I'm just going to pause this while I put up some pictures of some very big wild dovii. Now these ones that I'm going to show you have been caught by fishermen, and some of them have been speared, some have been caught on a fishing hook. But I just want to show you something, so bear with me and I'll be right back. Okay, excuse my camera work, this is on my computer screen, but just have a look at that big dovii there. Now obviously that's a spear fisherman, and I know it's sad to see a dovii that's got a spear through it. It makes me sad. All I want to do is rescue these fish and put them in a fish tank, because to me they're an aquarium species. But to the natives and to the people that live in Central America, they're also a food source. And you know, they grow big, and you know, if I lived over there, I'd probably see them as a food source too. But I'm in Australia and I see them as a pet. This male here, I would guess to be at least 18 inches long, maybe 22 or even 24. Big nuchal hump, obviously a thick, big, dominant male. That fish isn't going to get big like that in a 6x2x2 fish tank. I'd very much doubt it. Not that big and bull looking with his big nuchal hump and the thickness and that. He might, but I'd be more inclined to think that to get a fish to that sort of dimension, I'd be thinking more like an 8x3x2, like 3 front to back. I mean, that's just my opinion. But I'm trying to show people, because I want people to know how important it is to have, if you really want to keep dovii and get them to the maximum potential, you've got to have a big tank. And I'm going to just show you some potential of what dovii can get, like size-wise. So there's the first one I'm going to show you. And excuse me, and I'll be back with another one in just a moment. Alright, there's number 2. Now, and that fish has got a long tail, which is kinked around. Going by this man's size, I don't think he's a very large person. But I'll tell you what, that is a big male dovii, a very big male dovii. Look at the amount of hand lengths that thing is long. Gotta be 2 foot plus for sure, that one, from tip to tip. And I'm just saying, imagine the size tank you'd need to get one to those dimensions. I've never seen a tank, sorry, my apologies, I've never seen a dovii in an aquarium with the nuchal hump quite like that. Although in the National Zoo, DC I think it was, and I don't know America very well, but several years back they had many large dovii, and some of them, there's a few in there, one especially, had a really big nuchal hump. It may not have been as big as this, but it was pretty close, I'd say. Hard to find footage of those fish, but they are on YouTube. If you look, you can find some footage of those fish in that National Zoo aquarium. I think it was about 5 years ago, if I'm right, I think. And the other place you can look to see some big dovii in captivity in another zoo is in a zoo over in Loro Park, It's on the Canary Islands, and so the place is called Loro Park, and they have a lot of big aquariums, and they have some really big dovii in with some Amazon fish in a massive aquarium. They're really fun to look at those videos. But anyway, there's another big one. So, yep. Anyone who thinks they're going to grow a dovii up in a 4 foot by 18 by 18, after these pictures, I hope you can see why that's probably not the best idea. Okay, I just wanted to show you, I do have a picture of the one in the National Zoo. I think this one's from the National Zoo. There's a big male, and that thing's in like a, I don't know, it's some crazy amount of gallons, ginormous aquarium that's probably got arapaima and pacu and red-tailed catfish in it and all sorts of things. But this fish here, he'd be well and truly 24 inches plus. I've seen videos to suggest that they might even be up around the 28-inch mark, some of the dovii in that particular zoo aquarium. So there you go, that's how they can get in captivity. That one is in captivity. This fish here is in captivity, or was. If it's still alive, I doubt that. But point being that it is possible. The aquarium I believe that this particular fish was in, I think it was like 35,000 gallons or something. It might even be more than that. So obviously massive. No one at home is ever going to have that sort of an aquarium. But this is why I'm saying, if you can have, I reckon, in my opinion, at least, at the minimum for me personally, I would say you really need to have at least a 6 by 2.5 by 2.5, and I'd feel like that's too small. I would be more comfortable with an 8 by 2.5 by 2.5 as a minimum tank size to get a dovii comfortably up to that 20-inch mark, and that's really looking after him. But as Mel has himself, Guapote Mel, I like his idea of 8 or 10 foot long, 4 foot front to back, and 3 foot plus deep. That gives these fellas a really good chance of achieving their maximum potential. Okay, let's have a look at some more. All right, how ridiculously big is this one, hey? Maybe not as long as one or two of the others that I've just shown you, but wow, look how tall this thing is. It is tall. He's got to be 10, 12 inches tall, I reckon, that fish. As when I say tall, I mean from the lowest point of his body to the highest point of his top fin, or even to the top of his nuchal hump. He's huge, and imagine the weight on him. He is just a blocky beast of a dovii. I'd be so proud to have something like that. I don't think I could sleep. I'd be that excited if that was in my fish tank. Anyway, there's another example right there of what dovii can really get like. Okay, another one. Now, it does make me sad to see this particular fish. Now, all these ones that have been caught fishing. But again, we're people, we all got to eat. I eat fish all the time, tuna and salmon, and love going fishing and eating our Australian river fish here, like bream and flathead and stuff. So, but my dovii is a pet, and of course, we don't eat our pets. But, if I lived in another country, I'd eat the fish that are, in the wild, absolutely. So here's a big male, and this thing's nuchal hump has to be the steepest nuchal hump I think I've ever seen. Let's just spin this around. Have a look at that. That is mental. That is the biggest nuchal hump. I mean, it looks deformed, but look how big he is. Hey, he's massive. Some of these dovii they're so big, I reckon you could almost fit your fist in their mouths. Okay, turn him back around. All right, let's pause for a minute. All right, here's another photo that some of you might have seen in some of the fish groups like Monster Fish Keepers and stuff like that, and people talk about show us your biggest dovii, in a thread. I've seen this picture multiple times on the internet. I believe one point I was actually talking to the gentleman in this picture that caught these two particular fish, and he told me that it's not uncommon where he caught these fish to catch fish of this sort of nature, of this sort of size. So it's not uncommon. I mean, they're, you know, I think the one on the left of the screen is probably this one here. I would guess to be well and truly 18 inches plus. That one's got to be 20. And I mean, look at the nuchal humps on these guys, eh? You know, if you see one like that in an aquarium, it'd be just amazing. And you know, it is achievable, but as I said, again, massive tank, proper amount of water changes, proper diet, everything important, so important. The temperature of the water, just everything you can do makes such a difference to how your dovii will end up. Okay, here's another picture, guys. These gentlemen here were in a angling tournament. Oh, there's lines on the screen, I apologise about that. I am filming off the phone onto a computer screen, so anyway, I think that particular fish was the winning fish and was close to the world record that's been recorded for the biggest dovii ever caught. Now, I can tell you right now, from my research, that is a big fish. There's no doubt about that. And it's been, this particular one has been recognised by the IF, whatever it is, the fishing world record, whatever you want to call it. And I think this one lengthwise was pretty close to the biggest one ever recorded, according to the, you know, the officials, but the weight wasn't quite there of the biggest one ever recorded. But I can promise you this, they grow much bigger than this one. And we've actually seen a couple of pictures of ones today that I've shown you that I believe are bigger than this one, especially in weight and length, although this one has got an exceptionally large nuchal hump. But you know, so has some of the other ones we've seen today. And there's millions of pictures out there if you look all over the internet, and you know what you're looking for. But yeah, there's another big crazy dovii. Again, just more reason for you to have a big fish tank for your dovii. All right, now I live in Queensland in Australia. I live in Brisbane City, in fact. And years ago, up the coast from where I live, if you head north, there's a place called Mooloolaba. And at Mooloolaba, they have a place like SeaWorld, only it's called Underwater World. And years ago, which I'm thinking about 12 years ago, I'd say, maybe even up to, could even be 15 or 20 years ago, to be honest, but it would be at least 12 years ago. I seen this dovii, this male dovii, in fact, in real life myself. This is not my photo, but I do have photos of this fish, and it's really hard to tell from this picture. And I was right up against the glass looking at this thing because I was just amazed how big this dovii was. I honestly estimate that this particular dovii, I would say, I really believe was about 28 inches, no problem. I mean, this thing was way bigger than 2 feet long, and yet it did not have the big ginormous nuchal hump, but it didn't have a lot of threats in the tank that it was in. It didn't have any other dovii. It did have some really big red devils in the tank, some really big red devils. I'm talking 14, 15 inch big male red devils with nuchal humps that look like tennis balls. And I'm telling you, when they were near this big dovii, he made them look so small. This dovii was ginormous. I was so impressed with the size of it. I actually rang up on the telephone, Underwater World, and asked to speak to someone because I wanted to know, how did you get that fish so big and what do you feed it? And they told me most of the diet that they fed those fish in that particular tank was giant krill and like prawns, if I'm right, I believe. So giant krill and prawns was the bulk of the diet of the fish in that tank, especially the cichlids and stuff. Not sure what the other fish ate. could have been the same. It was pacu and things like that. The big Amazonian fish, you know. So it was a big Amazonian sort of a tank, but it did have this big dovii in there. And I know that the dovii don't come from the Amazon, but it seems to me that some zoo aquariums, people tend to put a big dovii or several in Amazon tanks because they're a cichlid. Dovii are a cichlid that can grow really big and take care of themselves. Obviously, besides Umbrophorum, you know, they're pretty much the biggest boy. Obviously peacock bass too, and you know, peacock bass are successfully put in those sort of big tanks as well. But there's not a whole lot. You know, there's only 3 or 4 cichlids that grow to that sort of size, and it's always debatable. I don't even want to get into whether umbies or dovii grow the biggest. So I don't think anyone will ever know that for sure, unless you could actually catch the biggest dovii in the world and know it, and the biggest umbi in the world and know it. I think that's the only way you'd ever know. But both fish grow huge. We know that. I just happen to like dovii more, but that's just me. Anyway, that particular fish, if anyone from Australia is watching this video, you might remember that particular fish. I was so impressed. He was ginormous. Anyway. Alright guys, this is one hell of a long video. But I thought I'd just show you one more. I could find so many more if I just keep looking. But, you know, here's another big dovii. Got to be a good 20+ inch one, this one. Yeah, look at that. This fella's obviously caught him fishing, and he's just a beast of a fish. Nuchal hump from hell. Big old fish, hey? I mean, that fish looks like it'll be as long as this guy's whole leg. But anyway, so look, I'm going to leave it there because I've actually got to go. I've just realised, and this video is now 22 minutes long. So I was just showing an update of my fish tank with my little tiny dovii. Yes, I'm going to get a bigger tank, and I'm actually planning on getting an 8 by 2.5 by 2. That's my plan. That's the goal. I hope I get one. That's my goal. And yeah, please guys, if you buy dovii, please understand that the bigger the tank, the better. And you know, really look after them and imagine the result you could get at the end. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that I enlightened someone out there in the world that these particular species can grow very, very large, and I think they deserve a lot of respect. Alright, thanks for watching. Okay, bye-bye.